Did Robert David Steele fake his own death? It might seem like a bizarre question. It's a question worth asking, though. I mean, he's the one who said he was a CIA, officer? Intelligence officer, I think is what he claimed to be. Intelligence is such a strange thing to associate with Robert David Steele. It's probably one of the last words I would use to describe that moron. He's an absolute idiot. I mean, he's done so many stupid things. If he really was in the CIA, it's a pretty sad state of affairs. I'm frankly surprised that the country hasn't fallen apart before now, if that's the level of intelligence officer that we're having. And I mean, it's one of these things that just can't really be verified. The CIA will never confirm or deny, the identity of their employees. He's the one who said it. His wife also claims to be employed at the CIA or formerly employed at the CIA, something like that. But where does this idea come from? Did he fake his own death? I mean, obviously we could speculate about anything. I don't like speculating. And the truth is, I don't have the answer to this question. This is hypothesizing. Let me modify that a little bit. It's not that I don't like speculating. I don't like blind speculating. I don't just like throwing out guesses and saying, oh, maybe this happened. You can form a hypothesis based on evidence, and that's what I've been basically doing with Robert David Steele for 7 years, 6.5 years, since that stupid asshole came into my life, courtesy of George Webb. Isn't that weird? Now, if you were watching last night, we did another episode of Web of Deception with John Cullen. People can go to odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, where you can get more content, sponsor exclusive content. I don't know who that guy is, but you must have done something good to have a bust in Central Park. Kind of cool. If you had that, you'd tell your friends, come check me out in Central Park. But so did Robert David Steele fake his own death? I think he did, but I can't prove that. I want to talk about some evidence that I've seen that causes me to believe that he did. I wanted to come down to, or up actually, to Central Park here. Look, we got more buildings being built. I do believe that is the tallest building in New York City right now. It's a residential. Anyway, that's I think the tallest building in New York City. But this is the boat pond. We haven't seen any boats in there in a long time. But did he fake his own death? Well, the second that the Robert David Steele alleged death was announced, I had some doubts. And let's just talk about the reasons. It was a guy named David Nino Rodriguez who announced it. Here's some ducks. And it was strange. I mean, it was a Twitter announcement. I had never heard of that guy before. It wasn't like it was coming from his lawyer or his wife or something like that. There's certain people around Robert David Steele who we know and who perhaps, I don't know, I just didn't know this guy. I had no idea who he was. Now, there's an image in here that I wanted to share with everybody, but where is it right now? People know that Robert David Steele was doing some stuff with that guy, Sasha Stone, right? I don't really know too much about him. I believe he lives in Bali, Indonesia. Here's a screen capture from a video that Ole Damagard did with this guy, Sasha Stone. I don't know, he's kind of like a British hippie, and he's into New Age, you know, whatever he's doing. He has like yoga retreats or something like that in Bali. I saw an image of a house that he has. I don't know how much real estate costs in Bali. We could talk to Charles. He knows much more about stuff like that than I do, but did you hear the quacking? If it quacks like a duck, I don't know, you can go fishing. Are you allowed to catch a duck and eat a duck? Probably not. These wouldn't be here. If you could do that, some restaurant in Chinatown would undoubtedly be fishing for ducks. I guess you'd call that ducking. And if you're engaged in that and somebody throws something at you, what do you do then? But David Nino Rodriguez, he comes out, he says something to the effect of Robert David Steele has died. The story, the official story that we're told is that he's admitted to the hospital, that he contracted COVID-19, and they intubated him with a ventilator, and he died. And what's weird about this whole story is, it was picked up in the New York Post. It got kind of a large amount of attention given how much of a loser and an idiot Robert David Steele is. I mean, I don't know if he was ever on the real news, or nobody takes him seriously. He would appear on Alex Jones and do all his own kind of stupid videos. Sarah Westall and all these kind of people. Kerry Cassidy. Is the professional moron crowd. That's who Robert David Steele was rolling with. He had that, what was that thing called? Like Invictus Lexus or something, some like husband and wife duo of idiots who would constantly have Robert David Steele on there like they were knowing something about anything. But they didn't. That's the plaza over there, which Trump owned for a while. And then Al-Walid bought it. It is quite fascinating to observe the Trump-Al-Walid rivalry. I think there's little doubt that there's more to that than what we fully understand right now. So David Nino Rodriguez, he puts it out that, Robert David Steele, he died in the hospital from getting intubated with COVID-19, and then they just had a few contradictory. Let me go this way, because I don't want to be walking through the park for hours and hours. I don't know if I'm going to do a sponsor exclusive video about this. We'll chat about it on the walk back downtown, and if people want more did Robert David Steele fake his own death content, and if there's more content to be covered, maybe we'll do a sponsor exclusive show, but this will be one for everybody. And if you enjoy Crowdsource the Truth, please become a sponsor, even if you're only watching the free content. I couldn't do it without your sponsorship. And there's some people who are kind of going on Twitter, and if you have the $8 blue check, they're like, oh, that's bad for some reason. You shouldn't have that. And that's stupid. I got it because I got it because I understood that he was going to eliminate advertising and just have everybody who wants to use it legitimately pay. Because it seemed like he had come to the same conclusion that I did, having a nominal fee, like on odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, for instance, for only $3 a month, plus a very small Odyssey service fee, people can access all this content, and then you don't have to worry about getting dished out a bunch of ads from jackass companies that if they decide they don't like what I'm talking about, they can put pressure on whoever those ads are going to. You pay for the content that you want to see. And frankly, I think that's the way it should be, so that's why I do this, and I hope that people will sponsor the show so I can continue doing it. But Nino Rodriguez puts out this thing, says Robert David Steele died from being intubated in the hospital, but he put out essentially this photo. Now, to be honest, I do believe I extended the room So this image for today's thumbnail was created using artificial intelligence. However, it started with a baseline photo of Robert David Steele that they published on Twitter and then later appeared in the New York Post, etc. So I extended it using artificial intelligence to create the rest of the hospital room that he's depicted in right there, and I put the Bali poster on the wall. I enjoy making these little humorous scenes of dickheads in funny scenarios that undoubtedly would make them sneer as they look at this from their room in Sasha Stone's mansion in Bali, you fucking jerk. Maybe. Allegedly. Alleged fucking jerk. But anyway, that picture showed him with a respirator, not a ventilator. Much different. You know, if you pass out at a Little League game on a hot day, the ambulance will show up and we'll put a respirator on you, just a thing over your nose and mouth with probably some oxygen-enriched air coming in there. Try to give you a little O2 boost, get your blood ox up. What is that, duck feathers? I don't know what's going on, but careful near that ice. You don't want to have to get out the ice ladder. So right away for me, that is a red flag. Okay? It's inconsistent evidence. If they said Robert David Steele is in the hospital and showed that picture, okay. If they had a picture of Robert David Steele with a vent shoved down his throat, also okay. But they say he's been intubated, they say he's on a ventilator, but then they show him with the respirator. That contradicts what they're saying. We don't have any evidence that he was intubated. But let's say he was. Well, and by the way, people who are skeptical of what I'm saying, we say, well, he's dead. You're in the lawsuit, and in the lawsuit they said he's dead. That is true. So let's look at that for a second. I've got here, this is the death certificate. This is an exhibit. This is a public document here. This is an exhibit from the second iteration of Steele v. Goodman. Remember, Robert David Steele, it was announced that he died. Then his wife took over, and the court said, all right, where's the death certificate? So she submitted this, and there's some information on here that we can look at. So, what does it say? August 28th is the official date of death. This is his wife, his father, his mother. Yeah, see, intelligence. That's so weird to have him be associated with intelligence, but this is where the funeral was happening. Cremation with care, remember? Right, Mark Davis. That's the guy I spoke to at Cremation with Care. And then here's his doctor, the physician who pronounced him dead, Raja Naveed Imran Sadiq. I don't know much about that guy, but this is the death certificate as it was submitted as an exhibit in Steele v. Goodman. So that's a public thing. And so there, he's dead, right? Gotta be. Now people will tell me, oh, be thankful that the lawsuit is over and whatever. You definitely do not want to be in there. That's probably slush. I don't think that's solid ice. But you would just be so cold and unhappy the instant. This looks also a little slippery. So we've got a death cert. I don't know that doctor. I don't know who he saw at that hospital. I don't know a lot of things. But how could somebody fake their death? It just doesn't even seem right. I mean, what the hell? So if you just Google Washington Post, fake death, here's an Iowa guy, a survivalist who faked his death to evade trial for some kind of sexual, what did it say? But they caught him. Okay? Child porn, that guy faked his death. Then we got a woman who is suspected of killing her doppelganger. That's sick, to fake her death. This guy was cremated in Florida. Well, okay, so don't have the WAPO subscription on the phone, but people get it. It seems like faking the death. There's another article I found about how to fake your digital death. That was getting into kind of similar stuff to identity duplexing. Again, if people were watching the Web of Deception, we've been talking about some of these things that I observe that they do. I got that phrase from Cody Snodgrass, identity duplexing. So I guess that's some kind of intelligence, whatever. I understand that what that is, it started out, Bernardine Dorn used to do this with, what's his name, the Bill Ayers, the friend of Barack Obama. They would go to some, obscure town somewhere. This was in the 60s, so you didn't have the internet, or police stations didn't even have computers. But they would go and find, some small town cemetery and find some people. I guess I forget the details, but they were looking for specific names. So you'd go from town to town to town, and like if Joe Smith was born in this town and died in this town, there was a way that they could get identities of people and then like apply for a library card for that person, or you get certain kind of documents. You could get this is what it was. They could get the birth certificate. They would find a person or a name of a person who was born in one state and died in another state, and get those records. And because the states weren't, network, computer, whatever, not sharing information like that, you could create these false identities. And if you could get like a copy of the birth certificate and use that to get a driver's license, with a typo in the name, or you go to the DMV and socially engineer the person with a birth certificate copy of somebody with the same name or something like that. And you start to get the idea of how a sophisticated criminal could create these false identities based on other people, or conglomerating the identities of multiple people, so that if you then get a credit card, a driver's license, a bank account, whatever it is you're trying to do that you need an identity to do, start a lawsuit against somebody, fake a death. These kind of things are what they do. And we see there that Florida guy, some Florida businessman, faked his death. That guy got into trouble because he was trying to do, what was he trying to do? I think he was trying to do insurance fraud or something. It's always all these people. So here's somebody's in trouble for child pornography. The other lady is killing her doppelganger. That's serious stuff. Again, I don't have a sufficient amount of evidence to prove that Robert David Steele faked his death, but I think it's possible that he may have, because it also doesn't make a lot of sense that his wife would even bother continuing this lawsuit. Right? Why did she do that? It's gone on for so many years, and Biss is suing so many other people if the purpose was to get money. We discussed last night that Robert David Steele alleged that he never retained Biss. He never paid him. He said that he's being paid on contingency. But Biss had to know after all this time. So Robert David Steele died 2021. That was 4 years into the lawsuit. Biss had to know that I wasn't going to give up. You would think if he was just suing me to get money, I'm not the person you sue to get money. And particularly if he's suing CNN, which he does, there it is. If he's suing CNN, well, it just did that. That was a weird sound, wasn't it? CNN, Washington Post, all these other things. Why does he need to sue me? It just seems weird. So there must be some other reason, right? I think so. But what is it? So remember, also in the lawsuit is not just Robert David Steele. It was Earth Intelligence Network. That's his nonprofit. Okay? So here's Open Corporates. It's interesting. Open Corporates sometimes gets information that you don't get anywhere else. I'm not sure where they get this, but look at this stuff that's happening here. What does this word mean? Pendenact? I looked that up. It didn't initially, I couldn't immediately find a definition. But pending, pendency, something's pending, and it seems like they're transferring, obviously Robert David Steele was the only director on the board. There wasn't really a board of directors, as there needs to be. The law that controls nonprofits in Virginia is called the Virginia Non-Stock Corporations Act. It's important for people to remember, I'm not an attorney and nothing I'm saying is legal advice. This is just anecdotal stories about stuff that happened to me when an asshole who claims to be dead sued me, and how I feel about some of that stuff. You might look at some of this evidence and come to a totally different conclusion than I have, but what was going on there? It seems like the pendency is maybe, I don't know, adding the wife as a board director, but there's no legal mechanism for doing that. And you would think before she can just grab that non-stock corporation and use its resources, well, I guess they're not using resources if BIS is on contingency, but the point is it can't make any decisions. BIS can't go continuing lawsuits for it when there's no board of directors. I guess maybe there does need to be another counter lawfare episode about this, because I really should read people that motion that I put in. No, we did in the last one. I had cited that Fourth Circuit case law where a woman, there was some guy who was dead, and the wife or whoever tried to carry on, and they said, no, in Fourth Circuit, which is Virginia, you being alive is one of the predicates to having a defamation claim, and that it specifically had language there that said your family cannot carry on a defamation claim after your death, because defamation is a right, not property, and they can't bequeath their rights to you, and they also can't bequeath a non-stock corporation because nobody owns it. There is no stock. So she's illegally seized control of this nonprofit. Why? I can't say that I know, but I think it might have to do with the $2.6 million that is running through it in the last 990 that they've filed with the IRS. Isn't that amazing? $2.6 million, and previously the largest sum of money for that thing to take in was $270,000. And remember, back in 2017, when he was trying to claim that me saying whatever he alleges I said about him was defamatory, one of the elements of defamation is that you have to be damaged by it. Like if somebody just says something and other people hear it and nothing happens, that you don't really have a lot. Look at all this closed stuff. Oh yeah, so here's the Kaizen, maybe a closer view of this. Oh, no, it doesn't want to get that close. Here, we could do it like this. I get it doesn't want to show itself here. Wow. It's really upset about that. Here we go. So that little piece right there moves the whole business to the back of the phone, makes it work much better. $2.6 million. Where did that money go? Where did that money come from? And by the way, did people see this video of that guy, Sasha Stone, alleging that Robert David Steele absconded with 1.8 million? Oh, and you know what? There's another guy who contacted me. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he was the tour manager. Robert David Steele, Stenslow or something? So there's this guy who Robert David Steele hired, and this guy runs like rock concerts. You know, he will have a team of buses, and he was dealing with, I think, Poison, maybe Bret Michaels. Is that Poison? I think so. So this guy was in charge of that for many, many years. Whenever Poison would do a concert, you would drive around the buses, and the band is in the buses, and all the concert crap is there, and they get to the town, and they set it up and do the concert, and he's doing all that. So when Robert David Steele was doing his whatever, or it was called Arise America, I think. He got rid of Unrig, and now he was doing Arise America. And that guy, John Stenslow, I think his name is, or Stenton, something like that, he's called me once or twice or 2 or 3 times. Because, I mean, like I was telling John Cohen last night, there's a bunch of people who have been screwed over by these guys, and they see that for 7 years I've been talking about this and writing about this, and, you know, they want to know more. So he contacted me, and he told me that Robert David Steele hired him and his bus company to provide these luxury buses that have beds, and it's like an RV in a bus. It's like a fancy rock star bus. But this guy said that Robert David Steele rode the bus to hotels and was staying in hotels and ordering expensive food. He said he was practically living on, what did he say, smoked salmon and caviar, I think. I mean, how stupid and bizarre is Robert David Steele? But anyway, this guy with the bus company did not get paid. So he's trying to pursue Robert David Steele to get money that he's owed, according to him. And that rings true to me. I think John, this bus guy, I think he's being honest. I looked up what he was telling me, and, you know, Bret Michaels and everything. Oh yeah, he also said that when they were considering hiring him, maybe I could do a show with this guy. He said that when they were considering hiring him for this tour, he had some kind of like Zoom meeting with, you know, RDS and Sasha Stone. And, you know, Sasha Stone, I guess, is a musician, or I don't know what the hell that guy is. But he said, are you trying to tell me you didn't steal that stuff? Who stole that? Nobody stole that? You work for Apple? Get the fuck out of here, you loser. That guy's laughing in the street because he knows. Everybody knows what's going on. Oh, that guy's working. He's trying. No, these guys are selling stolen crap. But anyway, so John told me he has this Zoom meeting, and he's saying, well, you know, we've done rock concerts with Poison and all this. And so Sasha Stone says, oh, yes, I know Bret Michaels very well. He's a dear friend, or some kind of bullshit like that. And I mean, this guy literally like drove Bret Michaels around for 9 years. So he got off of Zoom with Robert David Steele and Sasha Stone and called Bret Michaels. He's like, I never heard of this guy. So, I mean, you know, and he said there were oh, this is what he said. And this made sense too. Because he said that this all happened right 2 years into COVID or whatever, and his whole concert bus tour business had been shut down. So when Robert David Steele came calling, he was so in need of business that he, unfortunately, and I've done things like this too, this is the beginning of any kind of story about not getting your money, that for some reason you just look the other way from some thing like that, like this guy lying about knowing Bret Michaels, and you look the other way, and then next thing you know, 6 months later, you're on the phone with people about how do I get the 50 grand or whatever he's owed. And so separate and apart from the phone calls with that guy who, well, we'll see if we can get him on the show and he can say what he knows. That's basically all the things, or rather I should say everything I've just said is stuff that he has said directly to me. It doesn't make sense for me to share things that he claims to have heard. Anyway, point of the matter is, maybe a year or more after Robert David Steele claimed that he was dead, I saw a video where Sasha Stone was getting interviewed by I don't know who, and he said that he believed that Robert David Steele stole $1.8 million from their Arise America tour. Now, I find it difficult to believe that they would even get $1.8 million from anybody. But where did that money come from? Actually, yeah, now that I think about it, there does need to be a counter lawfare episode about this, because when I was talking to Charles about this a couple of weeks ago, he asked me a few questions that led to the ProPublica advanced search. You know, he was kind of guiding me through, I've mentioned this process before. He is much better at it than I am, and Bob Bishop is also very good at it, but you can figure out, there's a bunch of different ways that Charles has to figure out where the donor money is coming from. But then you can also get to a point sometimes where he says, okay, that's it. You can't figure it out beyond that. Or they've got it hidden, you know, too effectively or something like that. And that basically happened. We found where some of the money going into Robert David Steele's thing was coming from, and it was pretty innocuous donors. Like, I think I was uh-oh, what's this? Kung Fu, I thought it said 4D. Kung Fu Panda 4. I haven't seen even one of those. But I was mentioning this to, I think this must have been in comments to the Cullen video, the Web of Deception video, as far as like where the money comes from. And one of the biggest things, obviously we've spoken about how there's a network of nonprofits, the 501c3s, that get just like grossly abused, that it seems essentially almost every single one of them is a slush fund for somebody, right? I mean, you've got Adam Sharp has a 501c4 associated with him, but they all have nonprofits. He's, you know, got the Emmys over there. Here, if you want to go to Nigeria, we have Lagos right there. But, you know, he's got that. Ben Whitty's has the Lawfare Institute, the Brookings Institution, the Clinton Foundation, the Obama Foundation, all these crazy things. And the point is, if you're super rich and you want to give money to some assholes and not have anybody find out about it, you could put the money in something called a donor advised fund. So there's, you know, all these different investment things. You guys are hilarious.
I know, right?
Not right. The donor advised fund is basically a component of almost any investment thing, whether it's T. Rowe Price or Charles Schwab, or I don't know. There's probably a million of these things. And the donor advised fund is, you know, if you have millions and millions of dollars invested and you want tax deductions, but maybe, I mean, look, I'm not trying to disparage this. There's going to be rich people who maybe don't want to spend a lot of time researching what is going on with what charity. And if you tell them this is a cancer charity, fine, give money to cancer. Give money to little kids, give money to whatever everybody gives money to. And I would imagine there's some number of investors who just, in a general sense, want to be charitable for their own, just for their own sense of being charitable and to give back to society and all the reasons that people want to be charitable. And I won't go as far as being cynical and saying there's certainly going to be some people who just want a tax deduction and don't care where the money is going. And then, of course, there's going to be some people who might know that this is exactly what they're going to do. We're going to get millions and millions of dollars put into this donor-advised fund, and nobody other than Charles Schwab or T. Rowe Price or whoever is making that fund knows who's putting money into it. And maybe you could find out who that is, but it would almost certainly require some legal something that we don't have ready access to, a lawsuit, a criminal prosecution, something like that. And the point is, by putting the money into the donor-advised fund, the donor-advised fund then can make a charitable contribution to Earth Intelligence Network or the Clinton Foundation or whatever, and then you can have lots of people giving millions of dollars to the Sue Jason Fund, and you would not be able to easily determine who that is paying into that. So, I don't know what this $1.8 million that Sasha Stone is talking about. I don't know if that was or wasn't stolen. I'm just recounting that I heard him say that on a video. And he also said that he, denounces Robert David Steele, no longer friends with him, no longer working with him, et cetera, et cetera. The general consensus from my conversations with that John Stens guy who's owed all the money is that he thinks that Sasha Stone is an absolute and obvious con man. I want to talk about Ole for a second because he's another person who has really badly disappointed me. I did believe that he and I were friends. Remember, I went all the way to Sweden just to hang out with him and do some videos with him. And I also went to Acapulco in Mexico. That's where I really started to first become disappointed in him. We should actually, is that a Web of Deception episode? Yeah, it is. Maybe we do an Acapulco episode. God, it's amazing. Those guys are sort of in everything, but where was I there? A lot going on here in Times Square. Let's just sort of stay a bit alert so I don't get stabbed. It's become Stab Central. It's like Grand Central, but more stabbing.
We have CBS, Showtime, and
There's the tour of two with the loudspeaker. Charles would say something funny about that. It's funny when Charles gets upset at people in the street. But okay, so, right, the 1.8 million. Ah, yes, and Ole. Right. So Acapulco, Ole was acting very strangely. There was a lot of people at Acapulco who I don't trust. Yeah, it does tie to Web of Deception, I just realized. God, this is so deep, this whole... It's hard to believe that this is coordinated in the way that it just most obviously must be. There's no way that this is all coincidence. And I mean, I'm thinking of things that I haven't shared with people yet. But, so anyway, Ole, I approached, I guess I just probably contacted him from his website because I could have sworn I saw him on InfoWars and that's how I heard of him. Like I never knew about him before, and then I think I saw him on InfoWars talking about the assassination of Olof Palme. And Ole did write a very interesting book about that. He knows a hell of a lot about that. Oh look, a decapitated Luigi. What a wonderful image. So he wrote the book about Olof Palme, and it's super duper interesting. Olof Palme, a lot of people in the United States probably don't know, was the Prime Minister of Sweden or the President of Sweden or, the top dog over there in Sweden, and he got assassinated. And the parallels to the JFK assassination are fascinating. There is involvement with I ran Contra players, including, what's that guy's name? Oliver North. He was rolling with Olof Palme. And it was something to do with NATO. They wanted Sweden to supply some kind of missiles. I think I have that book somewhere. People can buy it from Ole. But anyway, Ole and I, we did a lot of shows together for a long time. And as I said, I went to Sweden to see him. I went to Mexico to the Anarchapulco conference at his suggestion, and was pretty annoyed by a bunch of stuff that went on there, including his behavior. And Max Egan, who has done certainly at least podcasts with Nice Gimbal. She said something funnier to me than I said to her. She said, "Hi, other live streamer." Clever. But Olof Palme, yeah, so Ole and I did a bunch of shows, and we had every Monday, I think we used to do shows, and Cody would join us. And then we did a show about September 11th. Ole was a big fan of a theory that I have debunked, I believe, with evidence. The theory that he was promoting had to do with visual effects, and the claim that there were not, that the incident on 9/11 didn't go the way you think, and that visual effects were involved. And I addressed every claim associated with that theory and explained how visual effects technologies work and how what they were describing could not have been done with visual effects. Then I offered theories of how it could have occurred with actual planes. And my theory involves the planes not being United 737s, but remote controlled US Air Force KC-46 aircraft, and there's a lot of evidence to support that. So when I debunked the whole thing, and I think people would agree that I have a high degree of expertise in visual effects, I know what I'm talking about at least, things like optical flow, the digital photography that was the original source that gave rise to the claim that it was not authentic, etc. I explained all of the anomalies that were attributed to visual effects by what actually caused them, software anomalies and artifacts and things like that. And then I said, well, so Ole, what is your response? And he said, I don't agree with you. And I said, well, okay, in what way, what aspect of it do you not agree with? Like, let's have a counter argument here. And he refused. And then after that, he terminated our show. I forgot to mention the most important part. Just a few weeks before that, he had asked me if it would be okay if he did an interview with Robert David Steele. And I said, well, you don't work for me. I'm not in charge of you. You should do whatever you think is the right thing to do. And I sometimes say that to people, first of all, because I mean it. But usually when I say that, it's because I want to see what you're going to do. I was dating a girl one time who I had paid for a plane ticket to come see me in New York, and was taking out to dinners and all kinds of things that you do when young ladies come to visit you. And it was like the Sunday night or something before she was going to leave, and it was late and we were going to bed. And she was like, oh, my friends are going to a club. Do you mind if I go to the club with them? And it was clear that I wasn't invited. And I said, well, you should do what you think the right thing to do is. And she took that to mean go to the club. And I took that to mean, well, what a bitch. But then, at 1 a.m, about 2 hours after that, she left at 11 or so, she woke me up. And she said, hey, I forgot my purse. Can you come up to the club with my purse? And I said, you must be out of your mind. You need to go borrow money from one of those friends and get a taxi down here to get your purse, because no, I'm not doing that. And it was obviously the last time I ever saw that girl. But the point of the matter is, Ole thought the right thing to do was to do an interview with Robert David Steele. Now again, I would never tell anybody, maybe not never, but I really try to avoid telling people what to do. I hate it when people tell me what to do. And certainly for people that don't work for me who ask me, should I do this or that relative to whatever business they're engaged in, I don't get involved. I just say, hey, make whatever decision you think is right, do whatever you want to do. I'm not trying to force people to work with me. I want people to work with me because they want to work with me. But at the same time, I wouldn't do an interview with a colleague, in other words, some person who's been antagonizing that person and trying to destroy their life, who I know they hate. Who stole those? These guys are just, fencing stolen Apple products. Why doesn't Apple get the cops to arrest these people? Yeah, so Ole went and started doing videos with Robert David Steele. And where does Ole live now? Oh yeah, Bali, Indonesia. Isn't that weird? And there he is, friends, hanging out with Sasha Stone. So I don't know. I've never been to Bali. I've never worked for the intelligence community. I don't know what a retirement program there would look like, but if you were 69 or 70 and could abscond with $2 million, that's not bad. I think you could live for a while on $2 million. If you spent $100,000 a year, that's a lot more money than most people earn. That's a lot more money than Robert David Steele earned every year, except for 2021. $170,000 or something like that. Paid himself 2021, the year that he died. He died in August. Didn't even work a full year. And he got the $171,000 from the nonprofit. Now, it's not necessarily an unreasonable salary for the director of a nonprofit to be paid, but it is the highest salary he was ever paid in the history of that thing. Was he kind of like Goodfellas? Remember they said when they take over the guy's restaurant, they just charge up all the credit and then burn it down? Was he doing something like that? I don't know. I found something else. This is related to Stephen Biss. This is another doctor, Dr. Greer. He's got a blog here. I just found this morning, or actually somebody sent this to me after the Web of Deception episode last night. So thank you. That's excellent crowdsourcing. And that's exactly the point. People do that a lot. I really appreciate people who send me helpful information about exactly what we're talking about. That's the crowdsource process. And see, what's also interesting is one of the main things that George's brother is trying to do. He's acting like Fannie Willis and Alvin Bragg and that idiot Jack Smith, where they're taking laws and they're trying to change them a little bit, or trying to maybe be creative with how they're applied. Maybe get a law that's not quite exactly supposed to do this and twist it around. This thing, noisy ass mitzvah tank. And then what is that inflatable weird thing? They have a clown there. That's not, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I get distracted by all these things on the streets, and then I'm confused as to what I was talking about. So, Robert David Steele stealing the money, right, making all kinds of money the last year that he's alive.
Yeah, it said it was on...
And what? I don't know. So maybe they're all in Bali with the 2 million. I mean, how do they get it out? I don't have the answers. Again, I'm asking questions. Did Robert David Steele fake his own death? It certainly seems possible. And the reason to do it would be to, if you wanted to retire, you know, I mean, like I said, maybe this is a CIA retirement program where they say, okay, look, you know what? You're going to be 70. You're going to go into retirement. Go live in Bali. We've got a wing in the mansion, you know. I mean, the mansion. Maybe it's a 4-bedroom house. Who knows? If you had a giant 4-bedroom house in Bali with 4 bathrooms and private entrances and everything, just like living together like they're a bunch of 70-year-old jackasses in college smelling each other's farts. But they could do that, you know, get a $1-2 million place in Bali, pack a couple of intelligence asset losers in there and let them just live out their life, hanging out, doing whatever you do in Bali. So this is the new Madison Square Garden. Do people like it? They got rid of the scaffolding.
I don't think that.
It's not that impressive when you consider Las Vegas just built that whole dome, that sphere. And actually, that's also Madison Square Garden. So I guess that's why they're doing this, to try to make it better. But it's not very impressive, I don't think. And then they've, you know, sort of enhanced Penn Station, I guess. It just seems like a very half-ass. We need the full ass. That's a strange saying, isn't it?
Yeah, they did a good job.
Weird. So anyway, that's you know, there's more stuff we could do. There is a deeper dive that could be done into this. I'm feeling a little bit talked out for today, but if people want to hear more about this, did Robert David Steele fake his own death? Oh my God, yes, there is a lot more to talk about. I forgot about this. So we started to touch on last night this video that Manuel Chavez put out a couple of weeks ago about this whole Stephen Biss laptop, that there is some controversy surrounding and I can't help thinking that that has something to do with this. What was on that Stephen Biss laptop that now somebody doesn't want other people to see? I don't know. But it's certainly interesting. That girl's got to be cold as hell, running in shorts. I'm pretty much out of things to say about this right now, so I think we're going to leave it right there. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope that people will become sponsors. It's really, really important. Odyssey is a great platform to sponsor on. It's less expensive for me to deliver videos to you, and that allows me to make the subscription price lower for as little as $3 per month and a nominal Odyssey fee. People can sponsor the show and get access to sponsor exclusive content. You can also get on to Odyssey for free and just subscribe and access the free content. It has become the largest repository of crowdsourced the truth legacy content on the internet. And if you're looking for a particular video that's not there, send me an email. And I am pretty sure I have almost every crowdsourced the truth video backed up. It sometimes takes me a little while to find them. But if there's something that you would like to see on Odyssey, send me a message and I'll put it on there. You can also subscribe to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and you can read the Twitter coup on there for free. It's extremely important. All this stuff that Schellenberger and Taibbi are talking about, I can't help but think that they're trying to George Webb that story, get around it and try to own it so that they can tell you what's happening rather than what's actually happening. But get onto Substack and read the Twitter coup. It's totally free. You can also sponsor the show on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Huge thank you to everybody who sponsors the show. If you've been watching these Web of Deception episodes, they're super interesting, and even just talking about it and laying it out, coming back to some of this stuff, it really is undeniably interesting because we're gaining an understanding of how this sort of like digital Stasi on steroids, just how this whole program, just how it works and just the whole scope of it and everything. It's unbelievable. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great